Now, some people may actually say getting news from Al Jazeera is a Russian plot, and yeah, I would give you that. It is from a it is um what is it? Al Jazeera is funded by in whole or part by the Qatari government. So yeah, that's the thing. But sometimes they just have interesting shit that we don't see from most motherfucking news outlets or news sites in the US. So let's go ahead and look at this interesting ass video. So the US the largest slave rebellion that was hidden from US history in Al Jazeera. Now I've heard about the fuck what is it? The one that Pierce like put down and shit like that. You know, the one that Robert E. Lee kind of like put down and was, yeah, that shit was cringe. And like we actually have other slave rebellions that was fucking awesome. Like, and let's hear this shit. So let's go. Let's just make sure that we have the sound on. Okay, cool.
You're listening to the beat of a freedom fight that echoes across the centuries. Each step on this 26-mile march along this Louisiana road is a measure of a story that has been suppressed until now. What's happening here represents a piece of history you probably never learned in school. The horses trot to the pulse of revolution.
Now, like, our school system is fucked, man, because there's so much history that we didn't actually learn about. Like, for people like me with the socialist leaning, did you know that like the term redneck was originally a positive term because the mountain they were miners in the mountains of Kentucky or Western Virginia that they literally fought for the rights of, unionization. And the US government actually dropped bombs on these motherfuckers in order to like break the unions. And it's just like, wait, what the fuck now? You're literally breaking unions because these motherfucking, businessmen are requesting it. And so like the history of the shit that goes counterculture to this whole, oh yeah, woohoo, like, yeah, business is great and like, workers are should fall in line and shit like that. Yeah, yeah, fuck. We don't hear about that shit, but let's continue.
The muskets and machetes are a response to the daily horrors and dehumanization faced by an enslaved people. And each part, each player, is in sync to form a present-day representation of the nation's largest slave revolt. The 1811 slave revolt outside New Orleans is so unknown, you probably wouldn't even recognize its name, the German Coast Uprising.
And you know what? That's interesting. Like, say what you will. Like, the only time you hear about something around that time where the slaves and shit was like really revolting or shit like that is the War of 1812, where the British, which is now the Canadians, actually came and burnt down the White House. Like, did you know that the War of 1812, if the British had actually won the War of 1812, they would have freed all the slaves in the colonies? Like, that was the thing. That's why so many black folks fought for the British at that time. Because it was like, hey, you fight for us, we're gonna free you. And the thing about it is the US, like, those motherfuckers who hate the 1619 project clearly forgets about that shit. Like, it was a lot of things that the British were actually gonna do, and even though I was like fuck their king, they would have helped free slaves. But yeah, the 1619 project doesn't mean shit, right? But let's continue.
It's a significant part of history because even before the civil rights movement of the 60s and even the 50s, you see that there was a desire for freedom way back in the 1800s.
In 1811, these enslaved rebels had the most radical idea of freedom and emancipation in the United States at that time.
Hey fam, I'm Imayan. Today, we're gonna travel back in time so I can tell you why there's this plaque marking the nation's largest slave rebellion.
Okay, let's actually just read this shit. Acquired in 1893 and acquired in 1793 and 1808 by Manuel Andre, a commander of the German coast. Major the German coast major. Or I guess the major 1811 slave uprising organized here. Ori Bros and A. Lassetti were the last owners of plantation. Its subdivision in 1923 spurred the growth of LaPlace. Let's continue.
And why you've probably never even heard of that uprising. Spoiler alert, it's by design. This is what more than $1 million looks like. It's costumes, props, planning, and people. In 1712, Louisiana only had 10 Africans. By the start of the Civil War in 1860, the state had more than 330,000 enslaved people. Hundreds of years later, the descendants of the African diaspora are walking alongside each other as a reminder of a historic event. When a slave named Charles Dillon plotted what would become the nation's largest slave revolt 208 years ago, he couldn't have envisioned that much money or an artist named Dred Scott reimagining his rebellion for the 21st century.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Okay. Spoiler alert. So, I will say this. This is some history that needs to be taught in school. And as I alluded to before, you actually don't see where a lot of history of, the people, the masses, standing up and actually fighting for their rights. Like, you don't see that shit. Like, you see, it was just one. Oh shit, let me turn that shit down. It was just this one overarching person, this one overarching narrative to say, yes, we're going to stand up. I'm the leader and we're going to take you down. Like, no, they never talk about this shit. They never talk about the group of people. They want to actually focus on one person. Now, God, like, fuck. Yeah, it was Ned Turner. That's who it was. Or not Ned Turner. It was Nat Turner. Nat Turner, who was the slave rebellion. Okay, yeah, but like this shit, like, wow. Fucking wow. Like, and the reason why it's hilarious because, like, I get it. Like, when slave rebels, like, you actually saw like what they did in Haiti, and like what they did in Haiti, they fucked like they rebelled and then they killed everybody. So I can understand some of the fear that maybe would have happened during the end of the Civil War, but like you brought the shit upon yourself. But let's continue. I'm off on the tangent. Freedom or death!
And I wanted to do this because I'm very interested in the past, how the past sets the stage for the present. And I think it's really important for people to learn about this history, but also to think about...
Wait, do I know who Dred Scott is? I know who Dred Scott is. Shit, I've heard of him before.
How we get...
Let's look up Dred Scott. I fucking know this guy. Enslaved African, okay, man in the United States who unsuccessfully sued for his freedom and that of his wife. Okay, yeah, that's where I know this man from. That name from. He actually sued. He actually sued for his freedom, and the U.S. was like, "Fuck you." Okay, that's where I know this guy from. But let's also that's where I know the name from. But let's look at this motherfucker. Let's look up his fucking Wikipedia. There we go. Born Scott Tyler, professionally known as Dred Scott, an American artist who works often, particularly in nature, focuses on the experience of the African Americans in the country. And okay, oh, that's why I know this motherfucker. Like he did, he was a Chicago artist. Wow, he raised. Okay, so this is something. In 2020, Dred Scott launched a Kickstarter campaign to raise $40,000 by December 8th of that year to support his latest projects, of a reenacting of the 1811 German coast uprising in Louisiana. The revolution is the largest slave rebellion in the North American history and took place upriver of New Orleans. The project is planned in partnership with the organization Antenna, which promotes. Wow. Okay. Okay. 40 grand, and yeah, now he looks at he got $1 million. Let's look at some of this man's art. You know, we always support artists. Oh God. Oh God. Yeah, that's his shit. What is this one? This is interesting. Uh, Calling the police while white, not social distancing while white. Getting a job, you're unqualified while white. Accept Getting acceptance into your parents' college, standing your ground, being presumed innocent, avoiding blame, asking, "Can I touch your hair?" Yeah, I fucking hate that. Especially when you have dreads. Assuming others are wrong, feeling like a victim, thinking slavery is a thing of the past, expecting others to work for you, doing it all by yourself, failing at anything, getting your kid out of jail, thinking they don't belong here, carrying an automatic weapon into a state house, feeling superior, getting away with murder, thinking of yourself, thinking of only of yourself, lying, living. Oh wow, shit, fuck. And I'm sure people will say, "No, this that's overkill, and that doesn't happen." And like, fuck. Okay, okay, kind of getting pissed off about that shit. Um, some more art representing the 1811 revolt. Wow, wow. One, it fits the description. City of New York. Perpetrator, probable cause to stop in question. Eyes unknown, last unknown. I can't make it bigger. I wish I can actually make it bigger, but Okay, yeah. Wow. Okay, dude is living a motherfucking dream. And when I say living a dream, I mean like, um, wow. I shit. Like he is probably doing some of the shit that I would want to do. What's up, Boston? Um, but yeah, this shit is like wow. Okay, yeah. Damn that just fucking that just fucking okay. No, okay. Let's get back to the video.
Free today.
Scott first conceived of the idea 8 years ago and has spent the last 6 pulling together this massive reenactment, which is happening about 30 miles outside of New Orleans. The project features hundreds of reenactors taking on the roles of enslaved people fighting for their freedom in a place where you can still see pristine plantations 154 years after the Civil War.
My great-grandparents came to the United States as slaves. My great-grandmother came to the United States through North Carolina as a slave. My great-grandfather came through the Caribbean islands as a slave here in Louisiana. And my mother was born on a plantation, so that also has kind of spurred the curiosity in me.
Pastor Donald Ray August Sr. is a son of La Place, Louisiana, and he leads a church that he says sits on the land of former slaves' quarters. He'll be a reenactor in this event, and though the rebellion happened in his hometown, he hadn't learned about it until he was far into adulthood.
Like people say that like slavery and shit like it ended 150 years ago, but like we still have like this is a shit like we that conversation with Lord of Patriarch. Slavery ended 150 years ago. Well, motherfucker, like some people are still live. Some people knew people who were slaves. There are people alive who knew that they were slaves. There are people who are alive that lived under Jim Crow. Like, and they're not just old, decrepit people. Like my mother was born in '62. Jim Crow. They didn't get rid of Jim Crow to '68. Like this is the shit. We see this shit. Like it's not going away. There are people that are like, yeah, fuck. Okay, let's go.
I don't remember ever hearing anything about the 1811 slave uprising. Even the elders in this area spoke very little about something that occurred here. So it's that unspoken, maybe even uncomfortable part of history that many people didn't want to delve into.
Today, the place where enslaved people gathered arms is marked with roadways and refineries. It's in the shadow of these modern-day structures that Scott's art unfolds in St. John the Baptist, St. Charles, and Orleans parishes. I'm standing on the grounds that helped kill.
You know what? And this is the fucking part about it. Like this whole thing of needing a fucking underclass. Like, man, like you still get the people living in these poor fucking areas. Now it's under refineries and like fucked up ass factories. The fuck? All right. I'm tripping.
The myth of the happy slave, and it all happened just 1 year before Louisiana gained statehood. It was raining on January 8th, 1811, when Charles Dillon and a group of an estimated 25 slaves attacked the sleeping owner, Emmanuel Andry, killed his son, and started a rebellion. They wanted to start a free republic for Black people in New Orleans. Louisiana's uprising was partially inspired by news of Haiti's revolution. That anti-slavery rebellion won freedom for enslaved people and created the sovereign island nation in 1804.
Yes, this is the shit that I was actually referencing. So in Haiti, when the slaves revolt, they killed everybody who owned slaves. They was like, fuck it. Done. Donezo. Done. Like, yeah, fuck. And like I said, I can understand the fucking fear that some people had because after 1810s and after Reconstruction, like, yeah, of course. You fucked over so many people. You fucked over so many Black people or African slaves during the time of slavery. That is a fucking fear. And that fear still hasn't gone the fuck away from the fact is if Black people get parity, if Hispanic people get parity, like we fucked over. Like it got to a point, and I had heard it before, but I didn't know how fucked up it was. Did you know the U.S. has invaded Mexico multiple times and just like, nah, you don't do the shit we like, kill them all. Kill everything that you see. This is the reason why so many people who aren't people of color are so fucking afraid, because we keep doing fucking policies that just like fuck everybody over. But the thing about it is they don't realize we're not in that fucking world. Yes, there are some people who are batshit crazy. There are black people. There are some batshit crazy people that are Hispanic and shit like that. That says we want fucking revenge. But you know how you fix that shit? You know how you fix that shit. You don't treat those people starting from that, oh shit, they're gonna want revenge. You say, okay, let's not do shit to make them want revenge. That's the shit that's going down in the border. Like, fuck people that's putting teenagers in cages. But there are so many, like, scared white people that, oh my god, they're gonna come and kill us because we keep fucking with them. Like, seriously. You know the first thing that you do, if you're scared of somebody coming and fucking wanting revenge, you stop doing shit to make them want revenge. That's it. You, like, say, like, you know what? I'm sorry. Let's try to get some restitution so we don't have to, like, you won't be pissed off at us. Like, I hate to tie this into so much shit. Like, you know, what would solve the fucking Middle East shit? Like, would stop the terrorists from coming over here and attacking us? Why don't we leave their fucking country alone and stop supporting fucking dictators? Or we pay the price for this shit. What is the fun shit that they say about the World War II? Like, you sowed the wind, now reap the hurricane. We are motherfucking industrializing, sowing motherfucking wind. And when the hurricane come to us, we're like, oh no, what the fuck do we do? You just hate us because you hate us. Like, the fuck? Okay, let's finish this video. I'm off on a tangent.
On to New Orleans! On to New Orleans! On to New Orleans! On to New Orleans! Freedom on deck! Freedom on deck!
What does it feel like to be dressed up and embody the spirit of one of these rebels who was enslaved and fighting for freedom?
This is just like wearing a mask that gives that energy. I can walk until tomorrow. I will not feel tired. I'm telling you.
Ibrahim Asek is one of the people who advised Scott as he organized this project. As the director of research for the Whitney Plantation, he spent his entire career studying the transatlantic slave trade. And he says it's his duty to educate people about the African diaspora.
Some people don't want you to be educated because, you know, educated people cannot be enslaved.
I met people who had traveled from as close as Mississippi and as far off as Washington, D.C. to...
You know what? I'm sorry. I just got to make a point about that. Like, this is some of the shit. This is the reason why we don't see a lot of shit in the history books about people fighting back. And just to tie it into like, do you know the reason why we have a weekend is because unions fall for that shit? Socialists fall for that shit. The reason why we have fucking, like, Social Security, the reason why we have fucking only a 40-hour work week, and if you do more, you're supposed to get overtime, is because, like, fucking people fought for this shit. You didn't hear this shit in school. The reason why we have safety shit, like, I didn't hear about the triangle shirt factory until I was a fucking adult, where they literally had to have safety regulations because, you know, when you lock people in a building and in a fucking fire trap and you see people jumping from windows, specifically women jumping from windows because they couldn't get out because some motherfucking boss thought that they were going to steal scraps of paper. Like, yeah, we get this shit. We get it where, like, fuck, like, we need more fucking history of what workers' rights actually got people. And then they wouldn't be so fucking quick to fucking throw it away. They would. Okay. I'm talking about capitalism, and video talking about slave rebellions. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. And Marx was for the end of slavery to actually help the workers and support camaraderie with everybody, including the free slaves. And he sent Lincoln fan mail. Anyway, let's go.
To participate in this demonstration, there were also many locals. Having the community's involvement was a must for Scott, a person who more than 30 years ago named himself after the man in the Supreme Court's most infamous decision.
Brings it up.
In 1847, Dred Scott unsuccessfully sued for his freedom. 10 years later, our highest court said no person of African ancestry, whether they were free or enslaved, could become a U.S. citizen.
This particular story is also suppressed because from
Shit. Now, if you don't know, the 13th and 14th Amendment actually address this. I think it's the 13th and 14th Amendment. It may be the 15th Amendment. Actually address this. And the fact is, this is already in violation of the Constitution, that Supreme Court decision, because the Constitution was for not just American citizens, but it was how American citizens would actually treat the rest of the world. And yeah.
day one, the governor actually spun the story as there's not much to see here. The French colonial society was terrified of this slave rebellion and the possibility that it could have been successful. They also wanted to downplay its significance because they didn't want people to think there was huge numbers of revolting and rebelling enslaved people.
Another reason this major event is lesser known may be because of this: Jim Crow.
Jim Crow was another trauma, another layer of trauma. I think that newer trauma just did hide the old trauma.
The segregationist laws across the Deep South made black people second-class citizens until the Civil Rights Act passed in 1964. Unlike 1811, the 2019 version of the rebellion successfully makes it to New Orleans. Scott was deliberate in his choice not to visualize the uprising's brutal ending.
That white people did some terrible things during the times of slavery, that's not news. What is news is that black people had agency and self-determination and were fighting for freedom.
In reality, some enslaved people were able to escape. Others were captured and returned to bondage. And 45 people, including Charles DeLon, were sentenced to death. Their heads were placed on poles alongside the river levee from New Orleans to Laplace to serve as a gruesome warning and reminder another slave uprising would not be tolerated.
Wow. The fuck? Did we just go back? Did they go back to the... Oh, we're going to put your heads on the pike. What the fuck? Wow. Wow. Fuck. You were so fucking scared that you will fucking... Okay. Wow.
They were able to formulate a plan and to carry it out, even though it did not end completely successful, but they had the desire to even try. So that exemplifies a lot of courage.
In Scott's historical adaptation, the rebellion ends in this jubilant celebration. There's dancing and joy and a direct connection to some of today's biggest issues.
We don't have those same obstacles today, and yet we need to fight in as determined a way as they did.
All right, wow. Wow, that was an interesting piece of history, wasn't it? Wow, that was fucking interesting. I'm glad, like, I saw it in my recommended news feed, and I'm glad I did take the time to actually watch that. It was interesting. Wow. Damn it. That is interesting. That is interesting. Anyway, guys, definitely thank you guys for actually taking the time to watch that video with me. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Help out our brother's channel. Help it grow. Help me hit that magical number of 500 subscribers. so we can move off to 1,000, and then from there 2,000, and then 10,000, and well, you know the rest of it. Anyway, also if you want to actually help out the stream, you can actually go to the bottom and hit that. Hit that button on the bottom that says, you know, click this link to the Patreon or shit like that. Or up top, if you look up top, right above me, right above my head right now, you see that link. Anyway, thanks, and yeah.